Yeah, the kicking.
Well, the shoe.
Yeah. Like a shoe tap. Yeah.
You know, in Sudan, they put their hand on each other's shoulders. That's all they do. They never shake hands, which is like the right hand to the other shoulder. Huh. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi. Chief, would you
How are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
This picture is so much better than mine. It's like crisp.
I saw that on a Facebook post where like you cut this section off and you breathe and kind of defeated something.
You seen the one where they take like one of those old Norton antivirus?
Yeah.
tests?
Put it in.
Hello.
Did you?
Yeah, he
Okay.
slid in last minute last time.
Like, that's bad. I feel like I should tell myself when it's easy. Hello.
Thank you, Amy.
Of course.
My children, you
We're just
know,
having that discussion.
take things over.
For some reason, it works totally fine. If anybody can, like,
I was like, where's that staple? Like, well, we're not going to find this today.
this is Jim Pollock's, contract.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello.
I mean, don't put it past me. This one. Like, near the crowd we did last time.
Yeah.
I would like to call to order the Middletown City Council meeting for Tuesday, June the 2nd, 2020. Let's start off with a moment of meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll for us?
Ms. Vittori. Wow. Apparently we touched the table too much over here.
Lightning strikes.
Sorry.
Ms. Vittori. Here. Ms. Nenny.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Mulligan.
Here.
Mayor Condrey.
Here. Okay, this evening we're going to start with a presentation from our police chief, Chief Burke.
Thank you for having me. Can I have Crystal Marsh come up for me real quick? Crystal is the pharmacist at CVS, and we don't do this too often, but we're presenting her the Ron Van Arsdale Citizen Service Award, and I'll explain what happened. Thank you for being here. This is recognition on May 2nd, 2020, during and after an armed robbery at CVS Brio Drug Store, which she was tied up. During the traumatic event, you were able to remain calm, free yourself, and give accurate description of the suspects. Due to your information, officers were able to locate the suspect vehicle, arrest both subjects for aggravated robbery and kidnapping. We recovered $11,000 worth of pain pills, the gun used in the event. Your actions, definition, and attention to detail were instrumental in assisting the Middletown Police Department. We can't thank you enough. You did an outstanding job, and we'd like to present you a certificate and the Ron Van Arsdale Award. Outstanding.
take your picture.
6 feet apart or not?
No, you don't have to be 6 feet apart. That doesn't look good for a picture.
But wait, come on. This is the best part. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations and thank you for being such a brave citizen. Are you a citizen of Middletown? You work here? Okay, well, you'll consider it though, won't you?
Please. While he is here, I asked if Chief Burke would consider making a comment about our week's events. Ask if the dais would give him a moment.
So, Friday, I contacted William Ford. He's the NAACP rep for Middletown. We also had Reverend Bailey and Reverend Monroe there. We went with Earl Nelson. We sat down for 2 hours to discuss different things in Middletown. We are working on a united march. We're hoping to shoot for June 20th. And it would be a united march, just so we're all in this together. We're one city, united as one. So we've been working on that. We discussed having quarterly meetings with them to go over use of force policies, procedures, any use of force, any complaints. So during that, they asked me what we were doing. The main topic right now is the de-escalation training. We are training on de-escalation. It used to be verbal judo, but when an officer's tension's high, that emotion and tension is passed on to other individuals. When we respond to calls and they've been fighting, their tensions are high. Our job is to de-escalate the situation and bring them back down to calm. And we've been working on that type of training for about a year now. Also, when I talked to them about the complaints, we have citizen complaint form. Anybody can make a complaint. It doesn't have to be the individual involved. We take third-party complaints. They fill out a form. That form's given to a sergeant. All complaints are investigated. After investigated for internal or any criminal violation, those are given to Major Warwick, and then they're given to myself. So it's checks and balances across the board. Use of force is done the same way. If use of force is found by an officer for an arrest, that use of force, the officer immediately contacts the on-duty supervisor. The first thing done is medical attention for the person the force was used on, the individual. And we take them out to Kettering Hospital or Atrium, and they're treated and they're evaluated before we bring them back to our jail and our facility. So we give them medical attention immediately. A use of force is filled out by each officer that used force. The supervisor then documents all evidence. So he takes cruiser cams, he takes witness statements, he goes to neighbors and looks for any door, any cameras, anything like that, any video. That's documented, and then that review is given to Major Warwick, and then after he reviews everything, it's given to myself. Then the last thing they asked me is, how would that have been handled if a situation like Minnesota happened in Middletown? A couple years ago, what we did is anytime there is a in-custody death investigation, we contacted BCI, Bureau of Criminal Investigation. They come in and they handle the criminal investigation, so there's no bias with Middletown. So they can't say, oh, well, Middletown investigated this. So BCI comes in, they handle the investigation from beginning to the end. Middletown handles the internal part of the investigation. The officers are placed on administrative leave immediately until the investigation's done. And when you're placed on administrative leave, you have to turn your badge and gun in. You have no more access. So then they are stripped of their powers until the investigation's done. And then all cases are presented to Butler County Grand Jury. So I explained that to Reverend Bailey and Monroe and William Ford. And we went over all that, and we're going to meet on a regular basis. We're going to discuss different things we can do in the community. We have a good working relationship. That's why we decided to work on this peaceful united march we're hoping June 20th. We're hoping to get the council involved, get other city leaders involved. But I just kind of wanted to give you guys how we investigate, what we're doing, and we're really working on the de-escalation training. And, we've had we had some protesters on Saturday, very small group, mostly young adults, juveniles. We handled that, some incidents towards, when it got dark, but we handled that, they dispersed. So we're training constantly in reference to the crowd control. We were prepared. We went through some training again today, and last week our whole SRT went through a whole week of training on that. So we're prepared. We're going forward. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
What is the somewhat training for the crowd control? Because I think I've seen across different cities where different techniques seem to work better than others, where the police have somewhat kind of joined in versus been adversarial. I mean, is there a different situation in which you take different tactics?
Well, it depends on the crowd. If they're throwing bricks and destroying property and throwing stuff at officers and stuff, that's not a peaceful protest.
Right, then you're defensive.
If it's a peaceful protest, absolutely. We welcome that with open arms. And a lot of these events are not, sanctioned by the NAACP in different groups. These are just groups forming and coming to cause problems. So if it's a peaceful protest, absolutely, they have my support. But if it's not, then we handle situations a little differently. Because we don't want our officers hurt or businesses destroyed or anything like that. So we're prepared for both. So, if that happens, we may have to make some arrests, but, we want to make sure that our community's safe and our officers are safe too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And if citizens do want to form a peaceful protest of sorts, there's a proper way of actually filing for that, is that?
If you want a permit, basically a permit basically allows the police department to know the route. We block the intersection, we lead, we're involved in the planning, and we say, hey, this route may not be the best route. But you do not have to get a permit if you want to just do a peaceful protest on the sidewalk or anything like that. But if you want the police involved and you're wanting us to block intersections and stuff, then they have to go through the proper channels to get a permit.
Okay, would they just contact the police department?
Yeah, they just contact the police department, or they contact, Scott Tadish office, the Public Works Department, for the permit.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Can you talk a little bit about the Citizens Advisory Board?
Oh, we also have a Citizen Advisory Board. We meet, it's usually every other month. With COVID, obviously, we kind of skipped a month. But that's involved, they have, I think, 12 members, and I meet with them. We go over any officer discipline during the meeting. We also go over any use of forces. I discuss some upcoming events, any hires at the police department, any promotions. We review any questions they have on citizen complaints. We go over all information like that. And we meet like every other month. We actually have a meeting tomorrow. I don't know if it's going to go with possible, protesting tomorrow, but we do have a meeting tomorrow at 5:30. So I meet with them. It's in different city leaders throughout, people in the community. It's a great board. I welcome anybody to be part of it. It's just a way they can sit down and get information on what's going on at the police department, what's happened over the last few months, and then I answer any questions they have.
Now, are those public or private meetings?
They are public meetings. So they can come in. They usually bring other people that have questions. Yeah, anybody's welcome.
And they can also email you questions to the
Absolutely.
Citizens Advisory Board?
Absolutely. They can email me anything they want.
Thank you.
Hey, no problem.
So much.
Okay, citizen comments are next. I believe, according to Amy, we have a couple to be read into the record. In the future, if anyone wants to do that, they can email amys@cityofmiddletown.org.
So I'll just say the first one, I'm gonna read it as quickly as I can, but it's quite long, so I know we won't get through all of it. So it will seem like I leave you hanging, because it will be. This comment is from William Bray. It is difficult to fathom that this airport controversy is simply because the city is requiring skydivers to land several hundred yards to the west of their current landing zone and indeed further away from an active runway. City Council has an obligation to consider the interests of all citizens of Middletown and ensure that city assets are utilized to their optimal function. As I've gathered the facts of this matter, it is clear to me that Start Skydiving wants to monopolize the city airport as its own private playground and recreational center, and any reasonable attempt by the city to carve out room for other airport users is vehemently opposed by Start Skydiving and its stakeholders purely out of self-interest. As I viewed the City Council meeting of May 19th, I noticed that many of the speakers' comments in that coordinated campaign were around this topic of safety and how it is a priority to the users of Start Skydiving. Few of them seem to be residents of Middletown. Generally speaking, let us dispense with the absurd notion that safety is the top priority for skydivers. Indeed, the entire point of skydiving is to get a thrill and a general adrenaline rush from the controlled danger of jumping out of an airplane. If safety were their top priority, skydivers would engage in other diversions such as checkers, pinochle, or golf. In the more specific case of Start Skydiving, it is apparent that they have racked up an abysmal safety record over the past decade of operations at Hook Field, which makes all the commentary about safety concerns rather hypocritical and reveal them to be diversionary smokescreen. One of the commenters had scoured FAA records going back several decades and was able just to find a few instances of mid-air aircraft skydiver collisions. But notably absent from his comments were the fact that, as reported by various news organizations, there have been 2 fatalities right here in Middletown at Start Skydiving within the past 6 years, and a 3rd fatality earlier this year in Florida by a member of the Middletown-based skydiving team. These deaths are in addition to some unknown number of near misses and serious accidents, at least one of which apparently involved the son of the owner of skydiving, according to comments at the last meeting. The murky circumstances by which Start Skydiving left Warren County Airport also deserve scrutiny and perhaps foreshadowed the current predicament. It is my understanding that they failed to make rent payments with that entity, and now, here we go again, there is a lease dispute that has been ongoing between the city and Start Skydiving for months. The citizens deserve to know more about the specifics of this dispute. Is Start Skydiving in arrears in its lease payments to the city? The ownership of Start Skydiving has recently claimed that the city has made no attempt to engage with them. Recent history suggests that this is patently false and that Start Skydiving has been well aware of the city plans for quite some time. The owner of Start Skydiving himself ran an aborted campaign for city council last fall, only to be precluded from appearing on the ballot because, as a convicted felon guilty of failing... So this is the second comment. This comes from Representative Candace Keller, House District 53. Dear esteemed council members, a situation has been brought to my attention regarding a local business in the city of Middletown, Start Skydiving. This issue pertains to the movement of this business' original skydiving landing zones and combining them into one undesirable landing location. I respectfully ask that the city reconsider, as this decision may have many undesirable consequences for Middletown. First and foremost, Start Skydiving brings in between $6 and $8 million yearly, making it a very crucial business for Middletown, as well as being an attractive tourist destination. In turn, this is beneficial to every local business in the city. The presence of skydiving program also secures grant money for the Middletown Airport. To enact the change in this business landing zones without further consideration would threaten economic harm to the airport and the entire city of Middletown. The new landing location determined by the city also poses several safety risks for Start Skydiving. The business's original 3 separate landing zones were set for different skydiving skill levels. Combining them all into one would prove dangerous. The more westward placement of the new landing zone also places skydivers right in the path of downwind pattern landing aircraft. Further, the new landing location is less handicap accessible, putting in jeopardy the business's tandem skydiving program for both civilian and veteran skydiving. Start Skydiving wishes to mitigate as much risk as possible. However, the new landing zone makes this exceedingly difficult. I was also informed that the FAA was not involved in the city's process for determining the new landing location. I find this most troublesome, as they would be the greatest authority for evaluating the new landing zone's safety. Excluding the FAA from this process is greatly concerning. In conclusion, I once again respectfully ask that the City of Middletown reconsider their decision. I am certain that a compromise can be made and suggest that a well-meaning dialogue be opened up between the city and Start Skydiving. This local business's input should be well regarded, and also the FAA should be involved in determining the best landing zone locations. This is for the best safety and economic interest of Middletown. Sincerely, Candace Keller. That's all I have.
Thank you, Amy. We have 2 citizen comment cards this evening for in-person comments. The first is Mr. Ray Miller.
First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for the job you're doing, and I think you're doing a good job. I really do. You know how my feelings about the airport is. I appreciate all the information we've listened to. I don't have a complaint. The thing of right now, I live on 4401 Brandon Lane, right on the corner of Brill and Brandon. The last street to the high school. Since this situation has closed the high school, that has become a drag strip. I have clocked cars over 70 miles an hour passing my house. There's a group that have these hot rods. I've got a hot rod. I've been a drag racer almost all my life. I own 2 cars that are qualified to be drag racing right now. But I never do it on the city streets. We've got an epidemic of about 5 different cars. There's 3 Mustangs involved, the same ones every time, and 2 or 3 of the Subarus that are really hot. They stop there at Rosedale at that traffic light and they race past my house. I'll guarantee you some of them have exceeded 100 miles an hour. And I mean, it's the same group on a daily basis. I don't know what we could do, but maybe put up an officer to, put up a sign, whatever we could do. But it's really, really dangerous on that corner. And that's basically all I've got, and I thank each and every one of you for the job you're doing.
Mr. Miller, does it seem to happen at the same time every day?
I was going to suggest, if I may, could I give you a call tomorrow or Thursday and talk through some of those issues, and then we can see what we can do to help?
Great, that would be wonderful, yeah.
Instead of
That'd be fine. That'd be
that
fine.
we can address that at the time.
It seems it's the same group. I think they must call each other and say, hey, let's meet, and they line up. And it's motorcycles also. But it's, being an old drag racer myself, I know how we do that stuff. And they get there, line up, catch the light, and pew.
And I want to say, I do encourage citizens, if you have license plate numbers and makes and models of cars and things, please call the dispatch at Middletown Police as much as possible. Every time you see them, I do it all the time. I know exactly the vehicles you're talking about, and I've reported them many times myself on the other side of town. So keep doing that because they need that. They have to have the calls for service. That really helps in a lot of ways.
Amy?
Well, at the speed they pass my house, I don't think I could
I
get
have
their
it.
license number.
Yeah, I understand that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, as much as you can, have communications with them because I know the police are working on it, and so.
I'll give you a call in the next day or 2 and we'll talk about some specifics and we'll see what we can do for
It'd
you.
be wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I really appreciate this group of people.
Okay, next we have Pastor Ruth Kelly.
Thank you for allowing me to come to speak to you this evening. It was great to hear the advice that the police chief was speaking about. I've watched a lot of the protests that have been taking place around the country and locally. We continue to encounter some of the problems that have been going on throughout history take place here, some in this county. I remember growing up in North Carolina as a child, and I was in segregated schools, and when busing took place, they began throwing bricks and rocks at the buses, and I really thought that was a little strange, and I didn't understand, why that was taking place. It really bothered me as a child. And now we encounter some of the same structural racism that's going on and hasn't been resolved in this country. What I noted as I talked to some of the other pastors, because I'm over as president of the Middletown Ministerial Alliance here in Middletown for the past year, and I talked with them, and we've had some past leaders over the police department and over the city manager that was here working to change the face of things here in the city, dealing with hiring practices to make them better, and also changing the way that we look at policing here. And it's great to find out that's still growing and changing. And that's where we need to continue to have our conversations. And that's what I really wanted to say. And I'm glad to find out this changing. We need to continue the justice that needs to take place in our city and have peace. We can't have peace if there's hostility. And that's what I want our young people to understand, and those that are forming some of the riots that's taking place. And I hope when they do the march that we get everyone to understand that. You know, there's so many toxins of racism that takes place in the country, and we can't have that if we're going to have progress in our city. And I want to see progress continue to grow in our area so we don't destroy our neighborhoods, the cities, and the growth that we've tried to have when we had our meetings that took place for change here in Middletown. The last thing that I want to mention is that we have an opportunity to grow through our policy changes that you have here in the council. And I know you're the right people to rebuild our city and do that through the racial gaps that we have for our minorities that are in our community. And to end, we must collectively have a progressive dialogue like the police are doing as well. So we educate, ourselves and others. And that's really most important, that we have a ability. Sometimes we have to empty our minds so that we can learn from others, learn something new, and continue to have that dialogue that the chief was talking about. And the dialogue can't stop after this is over, because sometimes we stop that even in our own community. So I thank you for your time, and I really appreciate each and every one of you and working with you together in the community. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Pastor. Okay, now we are going to move on to our council comments. We'll start to the left with Ms. Vittori.
Thank you very much. Obviously, my heart is heavy with the events of the week, and I don't even know if I can get through it, so I'm just going to skip along because I always talk too much anyway. I was lucky to receive from a colleague of mine a resolution that was passed in the city of Hyattsville this week, and it talks about the history of the injustice and systemic racism in our country. And it tries to put forth, and I'll just read a little of it. What I'd like to do is share it with my colleagues, actually, and see if you guys could comment on it this week back to Susan, and if we could pass a version of this. I know there's a lot in it, but it basically goes through the history, starting with slavery, working through all the injustices, leading up to a resolution that calls for us to enact policies that will unequivocally defend Black life and aim to undo the effects of systemic racism in our city. So I think that this could be a starting point for conversation and hopefully action. So I think if you guys, I know we have to do it individually, send Susan any comments, and if we could try to have this, sorry. Oh, okay. Something that we could consider. I'm sorry, I'm so emotional. It's just been a very difficult week for so many people. I had more to say, but I think I will just take a deep breath and hope that this is the beginning of drawing a new framework for all of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I too, share in the sadness and disappointment of the events in Minnesota. Obviously, those don't reflect the best of any police department, those actions, and they really have opened up a deep wound in America, and I'm hopeful and I'm prayerful that Middletown can be part of the solution. It is, as Pastor Kelly said, it's about building trust across racial and economic divides. And if we can do that here in Middletown, it will be a great step forward to continue to build those friendships and that trust and build those relationships. We'll be a better city for it. Thank you.
Councilmember Moon.
Yes, thank you. I too want to comment on this week's events and the tragic death of Mr. Floyd. First, I want to thank the Citizens Advisory Board, local NAACP, the Ministerial Alliance, just for your engagement and the way you love and serve the community. So thank you. I'm going to be like Amy here. For me, this strikes a little bit close to home. I have some very close family members that are African American. Knowing that they have to have conversations with their children that I will never have to have with my white children is just unacceptable. As a Christian, I believe that we're all made in the image of God and are deserving of the respect that comes with that. We have to accept that racism is real and it's in our community. We all need to examine our own hearts and minds and the things that we may harbor ourselves, some of which may even be an unconscious bias. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilmember Ninny.
All right, well, I write things down because I have a hard time as well getting through them. We are, as we declare each meeting in the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Until our neighbors in the Black community are given the liberty and justice that their white counterparts receive without conditions, the protests in America and now across the globe will continue. Watching peaceful protests evolve into the looting and destruction of my old neighborhood and over the Rhine over the weekend, I was flooded with emotions for my fellow small businesses. I felt loss, anger, fear, disappointment. But these were the exact same emotions that spurred outrage against the public murder of yet another unarmed Black person. My white privilege has protected me, and until more white people can admit this, nothing will change. This doesn't mean that violence is the answer. It is never the answer, but that is the point. I am proud to call Middletown home because in this time of turbulence, our chief, law enforcement, and community leaders have come together to support one another and ensure the safety and prosperity of those in most need. As we move forward, let us follow their example. Let's be better than we were before for each other with liberty and justice for all. The city of ours is resilient in so many ways. We continue to protect the most vulnerable in our community by practicing social distancing. We support our first responders and protect our small businesses. We hold ourselves and others accountable to do the right thing. So what can our citizens do? Keep protecting yourself and others. Peacefully practice your rights to free speech and report wrongdoing. If you see something, say something. Share any specific concerns you have for the community with the police department's Citizen Advisory Board, and know that you can make Middletown a better and safer place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Well, I think we can all agree that no human deserves to be treated unjustly. I know we all feel that way, and I look forward to participating in many conversations and events to honor the right thing and to honor justice, and continuing to do so. I know we all do that in Middletown. We've done it historically, and I want to continue doing that. And if this event is a reminder that we need to continue that, then so be it, a reminder for us all. This extends, though, not just from this event, but to bullying, slander, libel, and acts of violence. React versus respond. There's a big difference, and a reaction is survival-oriented, and on some level, it's a defense mechanism. And it might turn out okay, but often a reaction is something that you regret later. Now, a response, on the other hand, usually comes more slowly. It's based on information from both the conscious and unconscious mind. And so I encourage everyone to to think about responding instead of reacting to the situation. And communication, as we've all been saying, is the key to understanding each other and to knowing each other. And I give the Middletown Police Department a lot of credit for, despite their low staffing levels, continuously focusing on community-oriented policing. And I know we've been pushing to do more of that, which is great. And they also have that continued presence in our community and that positive impact on our city outside of the scope of what they really are required to do. And I think that's a gem that we have in Middletown, and I'm so grateful for our police department. And I encourage, as Councilmember Nenny said, citizens to maintain a regular line of communication with their police, the city staff, and their elected officials. We don't really get that many emails from citizens unless it's one major event and then there's a big spike of emails and then there's nothing really. So I don't know if citizens know, but there actually is an email address. You can email all your council members at once. And I'm going to give it to you now, and maybe we can post it on social media as well. But it's allcouncilmembers@cityofmiddletown.org, right? Shoot. And we're going to put it out there somewhere so people can figure that out.
I'm happy to put
Okay.
everyone's contact information, including my information.
Okay.
So people can reach you. Unfortunately, that particular email only works.
It won't work except during. Okay, so don't use that one.
They can also email me, and I can forward it to all the council.
Okay, yes, Amy S@cityofmiddletown.org will get you to all council members. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay. So, communications with your city officials in Middletown actually are increasing in frequency and in depth of conversation. So I encourage people, you may find exactly what you're looking for through participation in conversations with your council members, your city staff, your police department. And diplomacy, I've been in the Foreign Service for a long time, but truly diplomacy on all levels is proven throughout history to be the most peaceful, least expensive, and most effective tool in our belt as humans. So I really encourage communications. I'm going to give you a couple quotes to leave with that I've found today. The limitation of riots, moral questions aside, is that they cannot win, and their participants know it. Hence, rioting is not revolutionary but reactionary because it invites defeat. It involves an emotional catharsis, but it must be followed by a sense of futility. Now, the second one is, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Now, I use these two today because, I don't know if you know that or not, but they're both from Martin Luther King Jr. And it makes them especially relevant, obviously, to the topics of today. So I just encourage people, when you're thinking of your own response, ask yourself if it's a thought-out response or an initial reaction, and something you may later regret, and challenge yourself to devise a worthwhile response that maybe even organize an event or a cleanup in honor of whatever situation it might be. Let's take our energy and put it towards the good and do something great out of it, despite what negative event it may have spurred out of. So thank you, Middletown. You've maintained a very good level, even keeled on this. Let's keep it that way, and look forward to lots more discussions about how we can work together as a community and communicate even better than we ever have. Okay, Susan, do you want to give us your city manager reports?
I am going to keep my comments very brief because no matter what I've been working on the last 2 weeks, it's not as important as what's been going on in this country. So I'll push out the rest of my information at a later time. I want to use this time to say, sure. No one's ever told me I needed amplification, but there you are. Nothing I could say tonight would be as important as what's been going on in our country, and I echo the comments everyone's made. My focus in the last week has been to help open up a dialogue between our community members, and I commend Chief Burke for his immediate actions in trying to help reach out to the community and know that we are here for our citizens. And I liked what the pastor said about really being able to learn from each other. And I hope in these next few months that will be the lesson that we all get from this experience, is that we need to spend more time listening, less time talking, and more time learning together. So I hope that in the next couple of weeks, months, years, that we use that as a model to move forward as a society. And I look forward to participating in that. If at any point there is any citizen that feels they're uncomfortable with the situation that's occurred in this city, I hope that you would feel comfortable speaking with anyone on council, as well as myself or any of our police officers and city staff. I take those concerns very seriously, and if there is at any point that I can be of service, now, later, whenever, I hope that communication would stay open, because that dialogue is what's important. And that is all I have tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay, with that, let's move to the consent agenda.
For your consideration this evening, you have to receive and file Board and Commission minutes from the Architectural Review Board, October 10th, 2019, the Planning Commission from November 13th and December 11th, 2019, the Board of Zoning Appeals from December 4th, 2019, the Historic Commission from December 12th, 2019, the Park Board from January 13th, 2020, the Library Board from February 18th, March 17th, and April the 3rd, 2020, and the Board of Health from April 14th, 2020, and to receive and file oaths of office for Jeffrey Getter and Ryan Rollins.
I move to approve the issues and actions set forth in the consent agenda.
Second?
Ms. Gank, will you call the roll for us, please?
Ms. Nenning,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Ms. Vettori.
If I may, I just wanted to clarify from our last meeting, because I know there was concern over the way with which we were using the administrative rules we have in place with absenteeism. I know that the mayor had gone through and found some discrepancies. We've gone back and forth a little bit. I think we're taking this, in my opinion, as a teaching moment, because I think we've had a lack of clarity between the city and the boards and their membership as to what the rules and responsibilities are, how do you take attendance, how do you have an excused absence, what might get you kicked off. So rather than starting to just kick people off who are volunteering their time, especially having gone through this board process multiple times, often we don't even have enough people to be on these boards. And I think if we actually held everyone to that rule, we likely would have almost no boards with enough quorum and everything would be ruled impotent. So I'd rather take this time to re-educate our boards, re-educate our members, and decide honestly if that's a rule we want to keep or not. I think if we teach people that they just need to say, hey, I can't be there and it's an excused absence, maybe we can alleviate it, because again, having been on most of these boards, people are busy, and we don't want to discourage people from joining, discourage people from helping, just because they have other commitments. So I appreciate the mayor's desire for transparency, but I don't want to start with just kind of a random time frame where one or two of these boards. I think we should look at it holistically and make sure that we're doing this in an educated way.
Are we not having a workshop about this?
Well, and that was what I was going
meeting?
to point out. I apologize.
And consent agenda is not to be discussed separately aside from a yes or no vote.
Just for the knowledge, we will be having a workshop at 4:30 before our next meeting to discuss all of these administrative rules and hope that we can come up with a way to move forward that works for everybody.
Thank you.
And to be clear, those on this do abide by the administrative rules that are in the charter as well, the ones that we're approving today.
It's an administrative code issue.
Administrative code, thank you.
It's not a charter provision.
Okay. I think with that, we're ready for a vote.
Yes.
That's it.
Ms. Bretland, will you please present the legislation for the evening?
Yes, thank you. There are 3 items of legislation on tonight's agenda, one of which is an emergency. We are asking for a motion to waive the charter provision requiring 2 separate readings as to ordinance number O2020-24.
I move that the charter provision requiring readings on 2 separate days be waived and that ordinance number O2020-24 be declared an emergency and read one time only.
Second?
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Ms. Vettori.
Yes.
Resolution number R2020-14, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, state of Ohio for the period ending December 31, 2020. This is the municipal garage fund here for a second reading.
So move for adoption?
Second?
Does anyone have any comments on this before we vote?
We heard about this briefly. I'm happy to answer any additional questions from the last meeting.
Okay. Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll for us?
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Ms. Vettori,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Ordinance number O2020-24, an ordinance authorizing a collective bargaining agreement with the Fraternal Order of Police, Ohio Labor Council, for dispatchers for the years January 1, 2020 through December 31, 2022, and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Do you have any comments on this one?
If I may, this is similar to the contract we approved at the last meeting, but this is for our dispatchers unit. Again, this is a contract that expired January 1. They've been negotiating for a period of months. I appreciate this, their ability to get to a resolution we all feel is fair. This provides similar provisions that we've awarded in other contracts. There's cost of living increases built in. There is a small signing bonus built in. There are also some concessions relating to the step scale system that will provide the city a long-term benefit, and some administrative issues that will help administer the contract.
Any other comments? Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll for us?
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Ms. Vittori,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes?
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Resolution number R 2020-15, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, state of Ohio, for the period ending December 31, 2020, and declaring an emergency. This involves the transit fund. However, no action is requested until June 16, 2020.
This is some CARES fund money that we received for the transit system. So this will allow for a budget change so they can account for spending that money. It does need to be in by June the 30th, or excuse me, June the 30th. So in order to make it work, we were asking for an emergency action at the next meeting.
Just a question on that. I believe at the last meeting, we passed a resolution to pave the transit lot that Butler County RTA had requested perhaps. I don't suppose this money could be used on that?
I believe you will find that those funds were actually transit grant funds.
Okay.
So these will be used in operations. It'll offset some of the losses this year that we've had so far due to COVID-19 operating, and it'll help to operating funds. But I think you will find that actually was paid for by transit grant funds as well.
Thank you.
Do we have any outlying comments for this council meeting? Okay, with that, sorry, I'm gonna look at the calendar real quick. We're next scheduled to meet, we're gonna meet at what time?
We are going to meet on June I believe it's the 16th.
June the
That time
16th.
flies at 4:30, and I believe we will start in police training, and then at 5:30 we will move to this room.
Okay, so if any citizens wish to join us for the work session, they are,
We would welcome them in the police training room on the as you come off the elevators here at 4:30.
thank you. Okay, well, until June 16th at 16:30 or 4:30 PM, blue skies over Middletown.
Thank you.